Welcome back to Bootlosophy. I'm back at home here in my study, filming on Wajak country in Perth in Western Australia. So this is part 2 of my week in Tasmania with these 2 pairs of boots. It's my vlog on, or video diary even, about the week I spent in Tasmania on holiday with my wife. And if you haven't seen part 1, I think you should stop this video, go to my channel and search for part 1 over there, and then come back and watch this. But hey, if you want, watch this all the way through and then go and watch part 1. It doesn't have to be sequential, but it's very interesting, I think, in the way that we went to see the sights in Tasmania and the order we saw them in, and how comfortable these boots were, which I brought to you at the end of every day. So part 2 is about the rest of our time in Tasmania. Keep watching and then I'll talk to you at the end of it. Hello again, and this is the end of day 3, which I'm filming in the evening of day 3 because we're going to get up early tomorrow morning to go to Salamanca markets. So I thought I'd do it in the evening rather than get up earlier to do it tomorrow morning. So let me tell you about today. It was a fairly relaxed morning. We are on holiday and we decided to drive to Mount Nelson, which is south of Hobart. Now, Hobart is sort of, it's in an estuary situation. There are a lot of rivers coming into Hobart, and 3/4 of Hobart is surrounded by a mountain range, of which 2 of the tallest are Mount Wellington, and there's Mount Nelson to the south. We were told by the lady who runs B&B that on a really nice day, Mount Nelson actually has a better view of the surrounds. So today was a really lovely day, really beautiful sunny day. So we decided to go out and walk and drive across to Mount Nelson. So like everything else, through the highway, there's a lot of views of water wherever you drive in Hobart. So it was a really nice drive, bright sunshine, lots of views of water even through on the highway. And gradually, and it's only about 12 or 15 minutes away, to be honest, we left the city and then started climbing up the mountain range to get to Mount Nelson, driving through small residential areas. I guess you might call them villages built into the trees, which I think might be a bit worrying during fire season. But in the winter, they're very pretty and they looked quite expensive, the houses. Mount Nelson itself had a fantastic view. The lady who ran the B&B was quite right. They're really actually a fantastic view, which I think does not translate on camera because despite it being a really bright day, there was still a mistiness throughout the lower areas when you look down towards Hobart. So I think in translation on camera, it's probably all a little bit hazy, but in real life, there were some great views. We walked around Mount Nelson, which had some trails ranging from, you know, a 15-minute walk around to I think it might have been an hour walk, which was over 6 kilometers. But it was quite a, we decided not to do that because there was a lot of uphill and downhill from what we could see. So we just walked around the trails around the top of Mount Nelson, including one on which I scraped even more the toe of that boot. I know the exact moment when I did that. But the trails were really invigorating because they were meant to be easy to walk family trails. We didn't think they were. We thought there were some challenging aspects to some of the trails we walked on. Then after that, we decided to go to lunch in Hobart. So we drove back to Hobart and ended up at the pub called the Shipwrights Arms, which is quite a famous pub, well written up again. And we had a seafood platter, which was really quite filling. Lots of oysters, which is my favorite. Fresh oysters out of somewhere out of nearby Hobart. I think Bruny Island might be where they grow a lot of oysters. And I think there are some aquaculture farms down there. So having had lunch and a couple of nice glasses of wine at the Shipwrights Arms, we then spent a little while to drive around Hobart, particularly around Battery Point and Sandy Bay, just to have a look at the different slopes that went down to the water and get to know that part of Hobart, which we will return to tomorrow when we go to Salamanca Market. We walked around a little bit around there and then decided to come home a little bit later in the afternoon to again have a rest, reminding ourselves that it is a holiday and not to overdo it. So today's boot, as you already saw, is the NYX Overlander. And the reason I wore this is because it was partly for walking around in the top of Mount Nelson, but also, again, being a hybrid casual slash work slash hiking boot. I again wanted to see what it felt like in town. And I have to say, it is just getting more and more comfortable. I'm really loving, despite the stiffness of the leathers, how supportive it is. And I think that actually makes it very comfortable. Again, the shaft is warming up. It's really becoming quite soft. There's even a roll appearing on the toes. So, that's becoming a little bit softer and that I'm able to flex it. Heel cup is tremendously firm. So that's really a solid walking boot. I did say I'd scraped it along some rocks in a supposedly easy trail. And I think, look, because it's wax flesh, it doesn't really matter. And I eventually, a lot of the nap will show, like on the tongue. You can see it's actually, the wax flesh is rubbing off and showing the nap. And eventually, a lot of it will start to look like that. And later on, I'll get into how you might condition these. So that was today. Tomorrow is day 4. It's all becoming a bit of a blur. But tomorrow is Saturday, which is Salamanca Market Day. So I'll see you there. Welcome back. Let me tell you very quickly about day 4, because I'm sitting out here in the cold, and it's a fairly cold day, so I'm going to finish this and then go back inside. It's, what is it now? It's early afternoon. We had an early day today because we went to Salamanca Market. Salamanca Market is in Salamanca Place, which is along one side of the waterfront down in Hobart City. It's a well-known market. It only takes place, outdoor market, only takes place on Saturdays. Salamanca Place itself is fronted by these old colonial Georgian, I think, early to mid 1800s buildings that look like any coastal town in Britain, actually. And it's about, I would have said maybe 300 or 400 meters long. But the entire Salamanca Place is full of street stalls, and they incorporate clothing. They have food stalls. We had fantastic German bratwurst there, leather goods stores, all kinds of stores, really. And of course, being interested in leather goods, my wife, who loves her handbags, she's the Imelda Marcos of the handbag collection, bought herself a handbag. And while I was at the store, I also bought myself a backpack. Interesting, it's all leather, full grain leather backpack, made in Australia. They say it's handmade, but it's clearly machine stitched. It's a Tasmanian brand, locally made. I liked it because I thought it was quite a throwback to the 1960s. I mean, I can just see myself riding a Lambretta scooter. Interesting. Anyway, so we walked around Salamanca markets initially, and then we continued walking back into Battery Point, which we were there yesterday. I think things are becoming a blur. Battery Point's interesting. A lot of colonial style houses, again from the Georgian period going into the Victorian period. There were a few, I think they would have been workmen's cottages, which are now no longer workmen's cottages. They've been really nicely renovated, nice modern extensions at the back, clearly quite expensive with a view of the water. And, we found a sign that shows exactly how expensive it is around that suburb in Battery Point. We had lunch in Battery Point. at a bakery called Jackman and Macross, famous for their scallop pies. Don't knock it if you haven't tried it. It's quite nice, slightly curryish flavour. Anyway, for the day, and it's, as I said, it's early afternoon. We're having a rest. We're just going to put our feet up, read a book, sit by the fire, watch a movie, and that's it for the day. So for that morning through to just an hour ago, I had these on. The Amberjack, the boot, very comfortable for walking around the city. I said that they didn't need breaking in, I think one of the earlier segments, but they are breaking in. They're actually feeling more and more comfortable. They were not uncomfortable in the first place, but you can see the rolls that are starting to form in the shaft. The movement along the ball of the foot is very comfortable, and it's really, I think the insole itself is breaking in with the heat of my feet, moving the foam into place. And it's a kind of memory foam because it kind of remembers it. I said in one of my earlier segments that having worn the NYX Overlanders, putting my feet into these was initially strange for about 10 minutes because the foam does react to you rather than being quite static like leather is. The foam kind of reacts to you and pushes you up, but it has fantastic arch support, really good in hard surfaces, very slick sole, so probably not very good in mud and so on. And clearly this is not for the great outdoors, but it was really good. So it was an all Amberjack day, or an all Amberjack half day, and all in all, I enjoyed it. There was a lot of things to see down at Salamanca markets, and Battery Point itself was eye-opening. I enjoyed it. So that's the end of day 4, and we'll see what happens on day 5 if you keep watching. So it's the end of day 5, I think. It is getting to be a bit blurry, but it was a very relaxed day. It's a Sunday, and we spent a late morning, basically stayed in bed for a while and had a late breakfast, watched a lot of cobbler videos on YouTube on the big multimedia TV that we have in the pod. Had a very relaxed morning of it. And then after lunch, we had a light lunch here in the pod, and then we went out to the Royal Tasmanian Botanical Gardens, which is only about 15 minutes walk away, but it is up the hill. So knowing now what the terrain is like in Hobart, we decided to drive. The Royal Tasmanian Botanical Garden is basically a big cultivated park, but it has very well landscaped rooms, I think you might say. There's also very high walls, so it has the effect of a walled garden with a lot of intimate spaces around that you can walk around in with different exhibits. One of the environments that they have here at the Royal Botanical Gardens here in Tasmania is the subantarctic plant house. A lot of plants are from the Heard and McDonald Islands, which nobody's really heard of, except very recently. The population on both Heard and McDonald Islands are 0 humans, about 3,000 or 4,000 penguins. And it's famous most recently because of the tariffs imposed by the US on imports from the Heard and McDonald Islands. There have been no imports to the US from the Heard and McDonald Islands, despite the tariffs. But once upon a time, there were huts and electrical and scientific equipment, which when dismantled by the Australian government, the US research agencies decided to buy them. So there was an imbalance of trade. Anyway, these are tariffed islands. And apart from that one, you can walk through walls, through the gates in the walls, and then discover new areas. The Royal Botanical Gardens isn't just plants, it has a lot of architecture. For example, there are walls that cut right through different parts of the garden, not just enclosing it, but also enclosing the different parts of it. So, as David Attenborough would say, and the walls are fine and well built. Tasmanian flora. A flora is a treatise describing the plants of a region or time. And honestly, there's quite a lot to see. It's a very genteel botanical garden. It's very, very British in that way, I think. The skies were wonderful today. It was a very bright, sunny day. But we are so far south. It's interesting, you know, because in WA, in winter, it's either very grey because it rains all the time, or you have these crisp, clear winter days. Over here, because I think the sun is so far north, it's always quite low over the sky. So even midday, the sun is actually quite low. And what happens is you have this watery, I guess I'd call it an autumnal kind of sunshine. Things are a bit yellow, very, very British, because I suppose that's so far north. Not like WA at all. During the day, I wore these boots right through the botanical gardens. Not a hard walk at all. A lot of it was done, in fact, all of it was done on pathways, and you very clearly tried to avoid walking on the exhibits and on the grass and so on. So it was a very, very tarmac and ash kind of surfaced walkways. I did wear these because they are comfortable, and they're beginning to break in more and more each time, and you even see the rolls starting to appear across the vamp. And the suppleness of this Spokane leather is really starting to come through, but also its hardiness. It's 3.5 millimeters, I think, on average in most places, and very, very supportive on some cobbles and flagstones and that sort of thing. So I have no doubt that really in the wild these are going to be amazing. So absolutely love these, and did me very well on a lazy day. So we're starting to slow down a little bit. Tomorrow we're going to MONA, and you take a look at what it's like when we're there. So keep watching for the next segment. Here we are at MONA, which stands for the Museum of Old and New Art. We're outside now, but you can see behind me that white building with a funny chimney is the entry to the art gallery. And in fact, it goes down 3 or 4 levels into the cliff face. It's actually cut into the cliff face. And I'll roll some B-roll here, which shows you the walls which are cut into the cliff face. This is the outside sculpture park, I think. The Museum of Old and New Art is the Southern Hemisphere's largest privately funded art gallery. I think the Guggenheim might be the Northern Hemisphere's in New York, I think. So this is owned by a guy called David Walsh, who is listed as a professional gambler, businessman and investor. I'm not quite sure what he makes his money from, but it's well known that this place loses money. Native Tasmanians or people resident in Tasmania can enter for a $5 deposit. So in theory, as you leave, you can get your $5 back. But I think most people leave their $5. For us non-residents, it's $40 per person. And I think well worth it as a contribution. It's an extremely eclectic art collection. The building itself on the inside, that doesn't look like much, but on the inside, the corridors themselves, without any art in them, are themselves an art piece. And there's pieces of art all over the walls, in the middle of floors, above you, below you, moving sculptures, really rather strange things. Not a lot of old art, other than Egyptian pharaonic reliefs from the middle period, but really I'll run some B-roll here which will show you how extensively strange the collection here is. The facilities around the grounds here include a lot of eateries. There's a really nice restaurant up there for silver service, which we're going to go to. They have their own winery. There's a wine tasting room over there. And also outside here, there are coffee shops as well as a barbecue area there for falafel or whatever else you like, cooked on an open fire. So as you can see, plenty of facilities for children to play around with. Lots of grass. There's a man-sized chessboard that you can play in the park over there. So plenty for the whole family to do. So that was day 6 in Hobart in Tasmania, spent in MONA, the Museum of New and Old Art. It's a museum that I think might divide the masses. I absolutely loved it. I think Amanda found it very, very tortuous to the senses because of those strange corridors, and you get bombarded by noises, and it made her seasick. It's not a museum where you walk into a square room and then you follow the paintings around and you go to the next gallery and you follow the paintings around. It is all over the place. And to be honest, after 2 hours there, we're not really sure if we saw all the exhibits. It was upstairs and downstairs and lifts and ladders and stairs, and at the end of the day, you weren't really sure where you'd been before. So the whole day was spent in the Amberjack, the boot. And like the NYX Overlander, the more I wear these, the more comfortable they get. They were comfortable to start with because, as I said, this is basically a sneaker boot. But the more you wear it, that thermal activated insole at the bottom, I will pull it out this time, this little foam backed cloth top thing was really starting to mold to the bottom of my feet. And again, initially, I think after being used to wearing the NYX with all that leather under your feet and the leather shank and all that sort of stuff, when you first put these in, it's a little bit strange. It's like putting on sneakers after you've been wearing bare feet, after you've been running around bare feet. But honestly, the more I wear this, the more it breaks in, which I didn't think it needed to do. It's starting to show its rolls on the shaft. The green nubuck is sort of showing different characteristics. The sole was really very grippy in the sort of town circumstances and including in the wet. So I'm going to wear this home on the plane tomorrow, and this is the last segment other than a wind up that you get at the end of this, and I'll do that when I'm at home. I'll see you there. All right, I hope you enjoyed my week in Tasmania spent with these 2 pairs of boots. You know, I really did love the time I spent there. The last time we were there was 20 years ago, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way. It was a small town in those days. It's still physically quite small and compact, but in those days it was a very it was a town that supported agriculture, I think, because everywhere you went there were places that sold cattle feed and that sort of thing. And if you drove out of the city, immediately you were into farmland and so on. It's all getting a bit developed now. I think in the middle of the city, some of the buildings that we saw were definitely built since we'd been there. So new and very, very artistic, architecturally artistic buildings. They had a lot of original 18 and 1800s street frontages upon which they built glass towers that became luxury hotels and so on. We really enjoyed the stay, and MONA, I have to say, was the highlight to me, of my stay. Not so much my wife. I think the way the exhibits were shown kind of put her off. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed the video. And let me summarize with how these two boots went. So you saw them on a day-to-day basis. In summary, in terms of comfort, both were comfortable in very different ways. If I take the Amberjack, for example, I know this is a boot, but to me, on many occasions, I thought I was wearing a pair of sneakers. It was that comfortable. The looks I like, as I said, in various parts. People didn't like this black heel counter, but I think it makes it stand out from a normal derby boot with a cap toe. How else are you going to make it look different? The sole I thought was quite grippy under the conditions. It didn't rain at the end of the day. It threatened to a few times. So there weren't any slippery pavements and so on, but definitely very grippy, very comfortable on the inside. The TPU-PU sole was very comfortable, as was the thermal activated insole. The leather, the nubuck, was soft and giving. And even initially when I put my feet in and you feel the difference between the slim last of this one and the Nix, very soon after it gave way. The comfort of the Nix is quite different. This is a solid boot and you feel armor plated when you put it on, but you don't feel like you're wearing something heavy and stiff and ungiving. I described it earlier in the week that it felt like it was built around my foot. And by that, I mean the sturdiness of the leather, which is beginning to give, and the layers of leather under my foot, the leather shank, and so on that's built into this, created that really solid feeling, whether I was in the soft stuff, in the mud, in the grass, or on rocks, or in the urban jungle on pavements and that sort of thing. It never felt uncomfortable in any way. And to be honest, it's not broken in yet, so that is quite surprising. There were no hot spots, there was no pain, there was no gripping. A really beautiful last, this H&W moderate arch last. And the leather is just beginning to become supple. A few odd spots are scratching out, so the nap is beginning to show. I scraped that on a walk in Mount Nelson, and I felt it go, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to look down. But anyway, this Spokane leather is a beautiful blend, I think, between a tough leather, 3-point-something mils thick, as well as being an easy to break in casual leather. And I'm going to carry on wearing this, and I'm sure as the nap starts to appear from the wax flesh, it's going to look beautiful and patina really well. In terms of pricing, the Amberjack is $215 US. The Nix is $609 US. So very much horses for courses in terms of what you like, how you want them to feel. Do you like the sponginess? Do you like the hard support? I like them both. I really do. And I think for different types of wear that I'm going to put them through, I would choose them at different times. So there you go. I hope you liked the video. If you do, don't forget to click on like. That would really help me out. And of course, I hope you subscribe to watch more of my boot reviews when I bring them to you. So until then, you take care out there. See you soon.